Hey guys, this week we are talking about airline horror stories, a discussion of our recent foray into slots, and so much more. So stick around. This episode is sponsored by TravelZork Travel. Learn more at TravelZorkTravel.com.
Welcome to the Crap Vegas podcast.
Vegas, here we come.
Vegas!
Here are your hosts, Chris and Josh.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode number 49 of the Crap Vegas podcast. I am Chris, he's Josh, and Josh, we almost made it to episode 50.
That sounds like we're not going to make it to episode 50. This is it.
It was
Thanks,
close.
everybody.
I didn't want to start the episode with it, but this is the last one.
This is it. Episode 49 is all you get.
No, I think, Josh, everybody was right. You and I, we've had a falling out. We don't like each other anymore. We don't want to be talking to each other anymore. So we just said 49 was enough.
Yeah, 49's it. See you guys.
Okay. Yeah, so this is it. If you have any feedback after this, don't send it because we don't care.
But no, we're excited. 50 episodes is quite the milestone, Chris. And I was thinking about, should we track, by like 2 years, since we started the show, or do we track by number? And I think episode number is 50 is the good milestone.
I think so. Yeah, every 50 we'll celebrate a different way. I don't know what it's going to be this time, but we'll figure something out.
Maybe go to Vegas.
I don't see that happening anytime soon right now, it appears, but we'll talk about that at the end of the episode.
Perfect.
Let's tell people how they can get in touch with us. You can reach us via email. That's podcast@crapvegas.com. You can reach us over on our Facebook page. That's crapvegas.com/Facebook. You can leave us a voicemail, crapvegas.com/voicemail. Or the easiest way is always going to be on Twitter.
X.
He's at Vegas Duffy. I'm at Small Whale 13, or the show page is at Crap Vegas. Previous episode feedback, Josh. We received a couple follow-up questions about the Super Bowl I thought we'd run through real quick. We got a question from Jimmy on the CV Facebook group. He asked, how did you actually acquire your tickets, Josh? Were those things, we said they're not comped, so how did you get them?
They were not comped. I tried everything I could to get comp tickets. I reached out to MGM, Wynn, Fontainebleau, and nobody would even...
Planet Hollywood,
Planet Hollywood, nothing. So no, they weren't comped. I ended up going through StubHub. This is not a promo for StubHub.
StubHub.com/crapvegas.
That's right.
Don't go there. Nothing happens.
Yes. It's not sexual dysfunction.
No, it's not.
So I did have to pay an exorbitant amount of fees going through StubHub, but I think that's true with most of the ticket sellers. It's not a StubHub thing. But I know that the two guys that I ran into, I talked about at the Super Bowl, who bought their tickets as part of that were next to me, they got them on eBay and didn't have to pay the fees. So there were other ways to do it. I just wanted to be as, make sure that, because I've heard horror stories about buying the tickets and not getting them. I thought I'm going to go through a reputable place, and if I have to pay more, that's okay. So I got them on StubHub.
Would you feel comfortable buying tickets on eBay?
No, that's why I didn't.
I wouldn't either.
It worked for these guys. They got in, so I guess it was legit, but no, it would scare me, I think.
Well, I know eBay backs up their transactions, and if they gave you garbage tickets, then you'd probably get your money back. But
right.
Geez, I just don't feel safe buying almost anything from eBay, let alone multi-$1,000 tickets.
Yeah, I wanted, like I say, it would have been Ticketmaster, or it would have been StubHub, or some reputable dealer or reseller, right? Not that eBay's not reputable. Sorry, eBay.
No, ebay.com/crapvegas.
Right.
We got a DM from Nathan. He asked, what was the crowd like compared to a normal NFL game, Josh? Was it more corporate? Just a lot of randos? What was it?
Well, I think you hear that. I'd heard that about Super Bowl. It's lots of corporate. It's not the same noise level, all that kind of stuff that you get at a usual NFL game. There's some truth to that, I think, Chris, but maybe it was because it was in Vegas, or, maybe it's because it's fairly close to San Francisco. But I thought the fans were pretty normal NFL fans. You had a split, so it wasn't a true home stadium environment kind of thing, but it was probably 70% San Francisco fans, maybe 80% San Francisco fans, and then the rest were Chiefs. So when the Chiefs were on defense and the crowd was cheering for San Francisco, it was loud, and less so the other way around. So there was a difference there. But I was in the Kansas City section, and it sounded really loud and like a usual NFL game. So maybe on TV it was quieter, but to me it felt pretty normal.
Awesome. We also got an email from John B. about a crapless craps question that he had after listening to our last episode. John said, hey guys, Loved last episode and enjoyed living vicariously through Josh's Super Bowl report. My question, however, is regarding crapless craps. For a fairly risky player that doesn't mind big swings, what would be your recommendation on how to play at a crapless table? Follow-up question, do you find that crapless caters to beginner players more than experienced players? Thanks, John.
So if you're not risk averse, if you are into risk, yeah, crapless is the way to go. And specifically buying the 2 and 12 and 3 and 11. I mean, if you can handle those swings, it's a lot of fun. It's fantastic, but you're going to have some big swings.
Yeah, I would say if you don't mind risky play and huge variance, honestly, I would buy the 2, 3, 4, 10, 11, 12 and see what happens.
Yeah, 4 and 10.
They're all great bets. Stay away from the inside. You're not going to get the big hits there, which you said you're looking for. Yeah, buy the outside and see what happens.
Now, for your second question, as far as beginners, I don't think crapless craps is the way beginners should go. And it's not that it's more complicated. I mean, in a way, it's more complicated, but I'm thinking more along the lines of, I think a beginner is more likely to kind of want to stay on the pass line, maybe do a couple come bets or place the 6 and 8, which is fine on either one. But I could see them kind of forgetting the bad bets in crapless and going to come bets or going to pass line more because it's easy. And that's definitely not what you want to do on crapless.
Well, I'm just thinking from the perspective, Josh, when you read online strategies on how to play craps or you watch videos on YouTube of how to walk up to a craps table and play, nobody's ever going to talk about crapless.
Good point, right.
And how many times have we been playing at a crapless table? A person comes up, we're coming out, and it lands on 11, and the guy thinks, oh, I won, but they didn't win. That's just the new point. And then they get all confused, like, I thought 7 and 11 win. And you're like, no, this is crapless. And you try to explain it because honestly, they're probably so nervous when they first walk up. They don't even pay attention to the extra boxes on the table. It doesn't even catch their eye.
So no, if you're a brand new player or you're thinking about trying craps, don't do crapless if you can help it.
Yeah, I would say avoid it if you can. Once you know what you're doing at a normal table, then if you want to give it a try, go ahead.
Thanks, John. Those are really good follow-up questions.
We received a DM from Michelle, Josh, one of our patrons. She said, Chris and Josh, you guys did a great job recapping Josh's trip, and I love how you were getting all professional with your sound clips and music. My question regarding your discussion of crapless last week, though, if you were playing on a limited bankroll, would you see, this is a good follow-up question too, Josh, and she didn't even know. Would you rather play the 2-12 as your only 2 bets or the 6-8? Thanks, Michelle. So you can only play 2 and 12 or 6 and 8. What would you do?
I'm probably going to play the 6 and 8.
I wouldn't. I'd be 2-12 all day.
I mean, you could lose your whole bankroll before it hits.
Has that ever stopped me before?
I guess not. Yeah. But she says limited bankroll. If you want to, I mean, I guess it depends on what you're going for. If you want a quick hit or if you want the possibility of a quick hit, go with 2 and 12. But if you want to play for a while on your limited bankroll, I'd go 6 and 8.
I mean, Josh, you got to hit your numbers 5 times to equal what I get on a single hit pretty much.
Fair enough.
So, I mean, I'm pretty awesome from that perspective. So thanks, Michelle, for that. You know, Josh is the boring person. He's the 6-8 of the world, and I'm going to be the 2-12 fun-loving player.
Exactly.
We did get some listener feedback on the CV Facebook group from Joe regarding hotel nightmares, Josh. And here's what Joe shared. He said, about 10 years ago, I checked into the TI, and my safe was locked, so I called maintenance to come open it so I could put my cash in there. The guy shows up after about 10 minutes. He gets into the safe, and he pulls out a magazine folded in half with about 3 massive fistful of cocaine in it. I'm sure it was a good night in the maintenance shop, he says. And he says, this past fall, I got a really good offer to stay at Mirage, so I booked mostly for the large amount of free play and food credits. I checked in, went to lunch, came back up to find my key didn't work. After getting it resolved, I go back to my room and find they had checked someone else into my room. Their stuff was all over the place. I went back down really pissed off to find the guy who was given my room also screaming at them. They gave me more food credit, but it was an unsettling feeling to say the least. Those are 2 pretty interesting stories.
They sure are. I want to talk about the finding of the drugs in the safe. I bet that happens a fair bit.
I'd imagine you're probably correct.
I mean, I would love to hear if we have any housekeepers that listen to us or security people that want to talk about some of the things they've found in guest rooms. I can only imagine.
Yeah, that is pretty funny. Final thing, Josh, from previous episodes, we got a message on the Facebook group from listener James, who I believe is also the Facebook moderator. Same James,
He sure
right?
is. Yep, same James.
James said, I've just started upping my play. Thanks, Crap Vegas. It's actually a few years in the making. To a level where I do expect some comps. My wife and I are going to Mount Airy in the Poconos this weekend for 2 nights. My only history there is one afternoon after a conference where I ran into not the best luck, lost about $1,500 in 4 hours. It was a low table limit casino, $5 crap game, Josh. So when he was playing 25 on the 4 and 10 and 30 on the 6-8, those were some pretty big bets for what they're used to.
Yeah.
He says, my offer this weekend is $200 in daily free credit, an extra $180 in free credit for President's Day weekend. They get 2 nights in an upgraded suite. They get some food and beverage. Unfortunately, the casino is 2.5 hours from his house, but he's going to go because of the offer, and it's also a 21 plus resort with a spa, so that's kind of interesting to him.
Oh, yeah.
He said at his other local casino, though, about an hour and 45 minutes away, he's not playing at the same level as that, and they have him in the system for a while, and they're giving him $10 in food credit and $50 in free bets. He just wanted to share his experiences, and yeah, especially if you're new to a property and you give them some great play, you're going to get some really good offers to get you to bounce back. But if you're somebody that's been there multiple times, they know what they're getting, it's not as much, they're going to lowball you as much as they can, just enough to potentially entice you, but not enough to really make you go out of your way.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. And thanks, James. It's a great question or great observation. But I was going to say pretty much the same thing. Casinos love virgin players, and they want a player that's never played with them before. And if you give them a good day's play as a first-time player, they will probably send you a really nice offer that may be the best one you ever get from them.
Yeah, I agree, 100%.
I mean, that's what I'm looking at with Fontainebleau right now. I gave them 1 night stay and pretty decent play on that for that 1 night, and I've got the best offer I've ever had from any property from them to come back.
Yeah, and that's why I went over to the Venetian, is after I gave them that 1 short trip, they gave me an amazing offer since I hadn't been in their system in forever, and I bounced back and came.
Yep, and just, you've crossed your fingers that you get the same offer again and again and again, but take advantage of that first one if you can.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you all for all the feedback and questions this week. We really appreciate it. Okay, Josh, the topic name I have written down is Airline Horror Stories, and you wanted to change the topic name because you thought it might give people the impression of something more serious. This is not serious stuff, but it's things that have been horrible experiences for people, or put them out of their way in a way that they didn't like. I don't know, stuff like that.
Yeah, not a terrible story, just something you want to talk about and have fun telling the story.
And Josh knows why this topic is on my mind. Because when I was coming back from Vegas recently, a couple weeks ago, my trip to the Venetian, I was traveling on United for the first time. I'd never really flown United until now. I wanted to change it up. I got upgraded into their highest tier. It was really cool. But I was flying from Vegas to Houston, Josh, and what was possibly the weirdest experience of my life occurred with this woman who sat next to me who was just an absolute nut job.
And Chris is texting me this story in real time as it's happening.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
In fact, Chris, even as you tell the story, Chris even had to call me after the flight, which we rarely call each other.
Rarely do I ever call Josh, but I was standing in the airport and I was like, I have to call him after what was just the most insane thing. Josh, I've been next to people on planes that won't shut up. It's annoying.
Right.
I mean, but I don't want to have a 3-hour, and this was a 3-hour flight. I don't want to have a 3-hour conversation with anyone,
so
let alone some random person next to me on a flight.
Right. So before you tell the story, what's your kind of go-to approach to people that sit next to you? Like, I'll say hi. If it's a flight to Vegas, I'll say, hi. And every once in a while, you go into Vegas for fun or for business, that kind of and then I pretty much put in my headphones and please don't talk to me ever again.
Yes, same exact thing here. If it's a Delta flight, there's in-screen entertainment, so I'm putting my earphones in. I'd let them see me picking a movie to watch, and I put it on, recline, don't bother me. I'll take my headphones out to talk to the flight attendant. That's it. And Josh, this United flight did not have in-screen entertainment in it.
Right.
But I did, I got my iPad out. I had my AirPods. I put them in. That did not matter. Multiple times, she actually just took the AirPods out of my ear herself.
I can't even imagine what I would have done if somebody had done that to me.
And she even said, the first time she took them out, and she said, oh, you don't need those for the rest of the flight because I'm going to talk to you the whole time. Now, Josh, I want you to keep in mind, that this person, her boyfriend, was on the flight in first class as well, just not sitting next to her.
Oh, I don't think I knew that part, Chris.
Yeah, no, he was on the flight. She told me the whole story about he's a lawyer and he's very important and just like everything else in her life, super important. And they booked last minute or got rebooked, so they couldn't sit together. Little if I had known, I would have immediately given up my seat to him.
That's
and
the
just
first
said,
thing that went
it.
through my head.
I would have gone back to coach if that was what was necessary to avoid the situation. But yeah, he was sitting a row up from me on the aisle on the opposite side. So he was on the flight. But Josh, I've never seen somebody this crazy before in my life. And it started off fairly innocuous with just random annoying statements and discussions that I didn't think that were that important.
Right.
But it really got kicked off when at one point a flight attendant came down before the flight and didn't take pre-drink orders, like pre-flight orders.
That's right.
Which they should. I think most airlines in their first class do that. I don't know.
That's what I love
United's
about Delta
do.
first class, right?
But she didn't take anybody's order. And at one point, she did come over and just double check what you wanted for your meal. But she still, again, didn't ask what anybody wanted to drink. Well, that really upset this woman that she couldn't get a pre-flight drink. And she kept going on about how rude it is. And she flies 40 times a week. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm sorry. I said, I'm not used to United. I didn't know.
Right.
I said, I'm like a duck. The water just rolls right off me. I don't worry about it. And at one point, the flight attendant came back and asked another question. And she said, yes, please. And the flight attendant didn't say thank you. Well, Josh, it turns out that's the biggest thing in the world. She just kept going on. I can't believe she didn't say thank you. This is just common courtesy. This is what we do in the world. And now, granted, I did say yes, please. And she didn't say thank you to me either.
Right.
But I don't give a shit. Right. You don't have to say thank you to me. It's fine. It's not going to hurt my feelings. She kept going on and on. I'm going to contact United about this. I'm going to write this flight attendant up and let him know she needs to be fired. And this launched her on this whole tirade about how she's a super important person and she knows the presidents of all these companies and they all come to her for help when they need help with anything. Oh, it was unbelievable. And this is just scratching a tiny little corner of the things that happened. She was vaping on the plane the whole time, just out in the open, and nobody said anything. I don't know if that's common on United flights, but she was vaping the whole time. She explained to me how she was an extremely rich person and how she knows what it's like to have money and most people don't. She dated multiple presidents of NFL teams, she told me.
Okay.
And she was also formerly a stripper. That's why she was from Vegas. But she had to get out of there because of her history. And now she lives in Cleveland. By the way, if anybody can put these pieces together and figure out who the fuck this person is, please let me know. Because I really do want to know at this point.
I was trying to get Chris to, can you get her name from somewhere so I can try and Google her or something?
I had a last name at one point, and I think I told you, but I don't remember it and I couldn't find it. Josh, the craziest part of the whole flight, though, and I think this is the one I really wanted to point out, we were starting to get close to our final approach. We were probably an hour away, 40 minutes away, something like that. And we hit this really rough patch of turbulence. And she started like laughing and smiling and going, oh, this is awesome. I thought she was just being joking and, like, oh, just trying to make light of it. Because it was some pretty bad turbulence. And she goes, no, I really love turbulence. And I said, why? I said, I've never met anybody that really loved turbulence. And she goes, oh, well, I'm really hoping the plane will crash so that we can all die and it will be a big story. She was not joking.
Wow.
This was serious to her. And I said, that's pretty horrible. She goes, don't you want to die in something that everybody remembers rather than just disappearing? I said, no, I don't want to die, period. But I said, at the same time, I said, even if that were my own personal wishes, I definitely wouldn't want it to affect another 150 people on this plane with me rather than just myself.
Yeah.
And she goes, well, I guess I'm pretty selfish. And I was like, yeah, you really are.
Wow.
Yeah,
well, that's definitely an airline horror story.
Josh, I've never seen anything like that before. There are 100 things I'm not mentioning that popped up during this flight and things that she did. Some things I won't even mention. But it was just not really good. And I told Josh, I said, you know what? Let's ask our listeners if anybody has anything as batshit crazy as this. So we did get a couple pieces of feedback from some people about some of theirs. Some are better than others. Some aren't that big of a deal. We got a message on the CV Facebook group from Jessica. She said on a flight from Vegas, a dude was listening to music with graphic curse words out loud at the gate. The gate agent asked him to put on his earbuds or turn off the music since there were kids around. He refused. Police intervened, and that was the only time that she ever flew Spirit and probably won't do it again.
I had a feeling Spirit was going to be involved.
I did too. I knew Spirit was going to pop up at some point in a lot of these discussions. We got an email from Matt. Matt said, guys, love the show and saw your call out about airline horror stories. So last year I was flying on Spirit. Here it is again. Is this the only place things could happen, it seems?
Pretty much.
Other than my United experience, I guess. So he was flying on Spirit and was sitting in their big seats up front. The guy who sat next to me after boarding was clearly intoxicated, but the flight attendants let them sit and he fell asleep pretty quickly. Before we continue, Josh, I know you worked for an airline for a long time. How much of a stickler are the flight attendants and the gate agents about drunk passengers?
Okay, so this is going to interrupt the story, but this is a story that I have, Chris, that will answer that question.
Go ahead.
So I'm working a gate. So I was a gate supervisor for Alaska Airlines in Seattle. And this is a long time ago. And a flight had gone from, let's say Anchorage, somewhere in Alaska to Seattle. And then there were some guys going on to Vegas. And they were pretty stereotypical. When you stereotype somebody from Alaska, these guys would fit whatever that stereotype is, big burly guys, kind of thing. And they're going to Vegas. And they had about 3 hours in Seattle before their Vegas connection. So what are they going to do? They're going to drink.
Of course.
And I'm working whatever set of gates in Seattle, and we see pretty obviously drunk guys about 2 or 3 hours before the flight. I'm like, oh gosh, they're going to miss the flight. It's going to be a scene. Because Chris, that's the thing. You're not supposed to let a visibly intoxicated person go on board if you're a gate person.
That's what I've always heard.
Yeah, alcohol and altitude don't mix well, or may not mix well. And if they're starting out drunk, it can only get worse from there. So I went over to these guys and I said, nice as I can be, guys, I appreciate you're just having a good time. You're going to Vegas. You want to have fun, but you need to take it down a notch. You need to just be mellow and just sit here for a couple hours so you're not going to be able to go on the flight. They're like, okay, we can do that.
We can do it.
We'll be good. We'll be really good. So I go back over to my gate agents and we're working on getting the flight ready. And then next thing I know, one of them turns and says, Josh, look. It was behind my back. I look and the big guy, he's like 6'5", is standing up, waving his arms at me. Can I go to the bathroom?
Yes, sir. You have permission. Okay, teacher.
So they managed to go on the flight. And what happened on the flight, I do not know. But I got them so they passed the able to walk down the jetway test and get on the plane. And then it's the flight attendant's problem.
Okay, so with that known, let's continue that this guy, they got him on the plane. He fell asleep. Here's where it goes from there, though. About halfway through the flight, he woke up and vomited all over himself, the seat in front of him, and in my direction. He doesn't say if it hit him. He said, I immediately moved into the aisle and let him get to the bathroom, but he just kept throwing up and never went that direction. After it stopped, he said, quote, why go to the bathroom? I already threw up here, end quote. The flight attendants were able to help get him settled and cleaned up, but 15 minutes later, when they were offering drinks and snacks, he became belligerent with the flight attendant that she wouldn't serve him any alcohol. Well, that's ballsy.
Yes.
He ended up standing up and telling the flight attendant that if she didn't serve him, he was going to kick her ass.
Oh, wow.
That doesn't feel like the right thing to say on a plane.
No.
Well, very quickly after, a man approached from the back, tackled him to the ground, and put zip ties on his hands to keep him subdued. We landed about an hour later with no further incident, and the police escorted him off the flight first. Gotta love Spirit. Thanks, Matt.
Wow. So, Chris, do you carry zip ties with you on flights? I mean, maybe I don't want to know that.
I don't. Josh, I was assuming based off his story, this was probably an air marshal.
Yeah, was my thought.
And
too.
I know they keep those little things on the plane if they need them for other situations. And we've all seen the videos and TikTok videos of people being duct taped to their seat before.
Wow.
It feels like some civil lawsuits may come out of doing that, even if there is criminal prosecution. But that being said, yeah, Josh, it feels like Spirit is just a haven for some crazy things to happen, huh?
Yeah, I remember when you told, I didn't know anything about Spirit, and Chris is telling me one of his flights back from Vegas when he rebooked on Spirit, and he got the big seat. And I'm like, what the heck is the big seat?
Yeah. That's their first class seat without first class service.
Which doesn't recline, right? It's just a bigger seat.
No recline,
That's it?
just a big seat, yeah.
big
The only
seat.
thing nice, Josh, they're in 2-2 configurations instead of 3-3.
Right.
So it does give you a little bit more space, and you don't have that middle seat person that you have to deal with.
But yeah, I think so many of these flight horror stories, alcohol and altitude, and I'm someone who, I've said before, I'm a nervous flyer. I like to have a few drinks on the plane, but you need to be careful about that.
Yeah, I agree. Something as small, Jonathan experienced. He said his worst experience was on a trip to Ireland where his suitcase got lost, and it took 8 days to get it back to him. Have you ever had any sort of luggage get lost for that long, Josh?
No, I tend not to check luggage, although I had a buddy who went to Vegas that they lost his bag on the way to Vegas. I think it was probably Alaska, but I'm not sure which company. But he got like an unlimited budget to buy clothes in Vegas. So he got to go buy like a new $700 sports coat. And, they basically said anything you had in there. So he had a sports coat and he was going to dress up. So that worked out well for him.
I think the only time I had like a luggage issue, it wasn't a lost luggage issue, but it was in Vegas. I was going with my ex-wife probably 10 years ago, maybe more than that. And we checked our bag and we got to the luggage carousel and it's spinning around and we waited and we waited and we never saw our bag come up. And then at one point we saw a bag that was kind of like ripped open and stuff was everywhere. It's like, God, who'd that happen to? Anyways, that bag that got ripped open and was everywhere, that was our stuff. At some point when the bag came down the carousel, it must have got caught on something. It ripped it right from the side. It flipped open. Clothes were everywhere. Stuff was everywhere. Took it over to the Southwest baggage claim person. And they're like, oh, see, it ripped right here on the seam. That's not our fault. That's default, that's faulty baggage right there. They gave us absolutely nothing. They offered some tape to close it up, which was very nice of them. But that's the worst I've ever had for bags. The last comment that we'll share this week, we got a DM from Megan. Megan said, Chris may be able to relate to this one more. About 5 years ago, I was at the airport going through TSA screening, and my bag got selected for additional screening. They had found my large wad of cash, about $15,000, and they gave me an extremely hard time about it. They threatened to keep it and began to bag it up when we were in the special room to the side. But eventually, when I threatened to contact my lawyer and got their personal information, they caved and let me go. It was really scary. Have you ever had anything like that, Josh?
No, I've been lucky because Chris and I have talked about it before. I have occasionally gone to Vegas with, a fair bit of cash. Now that I have lines of credit, it's less frequent. But Chris is always like, you need to be careful about that. And I've been lucky. I haven't had anything like it, but it does worry me, especially hearing these stories.
I mean, civil forfeiture is a pretty big thing. So I would be careful carrying that kind of cash if you're not going to disclose it before you go through TSA and fill out the form. Nobody's actually going to do that. I will say that once you have TSA pre, the odds of your bag being selected for that sort of thing, because they consider it organics when they see the paper or whatever, the odds of it being selected for that are effectively zero. So if it really bothers you, get TSA pre-check to avoid that. But it's always a risk you take when you carry large sums of cash.
And Chris, I don't know if this is true with you, but most of the time I tend to pack a bag or so of snacks when I'm going to Vegas. And half of the time it gets flagged because it's organic and they want to make sure it's not weed or whatever kind of thing. Yeah. So I'm going through security last time in Vegas, I think, and they pulled my bag out, for screening. And I said, oh, it's the snacks, right? And he said, no, it's not the snacks. I'm thinking, what else have I got in there? And it's the little stupid water bottle that I got on the plane on the way down that I put in my bag and forgot about it. Yeah.
Yep. Many, many times.
Oops.
The mini bottle gets stuck at the bottom of my bag. I forget it's even in there. Yeah. You got to be careful about that.
Oh, Chris, the funniest thing when I think back to my wife used to love when I worked for the airline because I had the best stories. I would come home with, drunk passenger stories or celebrity stories. This is one. It was a couple's wedding night and they were going from Seattle to, I think it was Orlando. And the woman got stopped going through security because she had cocaine or drugs in her bra.
Oh.
And the husband had no idea that she was a user. And
no idea.
Well, no, he was.
How would you know?
He was at wedding night. He was crying and she got arrested and it was this horrible,
at least they didn't get married first, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, there were so many things. People taking guns through that they forgot that they had a gun in their bag, or my wife packed it for me, all that kind of stuff.
my wife stuck my gun in there. I'm sorry. Right. Goodbye, TSA pre-check.
I mean, I could see it. I forgot that I had a water in there. I could see if you used your bag last time on a hunting trip or something like that. You just forgot. Oops.
I've seen plenty of stories from people that lost their TSA pre-check because of accidentally, bringing a pocket knife or something like that. They do take weapons pretty seriously. You can get away with pretty much anything else, but not weapons. So good discussion, Josh. That was a lot of fun hearing other people's stories that make me feel better about my own. But after the break, we're going to talk about a slightly happier topic, slot talk. Everybody loves Chris and Josh's slot talk.
Oh, slot talk.
Exactly. So stick around. We'll be right back. Josh, TravelZork Travel. What is it? It's a full-service travel agency that specializes in luxury travel services and can provide you with VIP services and hotel perks at the same price as if you went through an online travel agency. And one of the properties that I know Michael and his team have been booking the most recently for listeners is over at the Cosmo, and specifically through the Marriott Luminous program. Are you familiar with that?
I am not familiar at all, but I know it's popular, but I'm not familiar. Are you?
I've heard about it a bunch of times, and I know Michael's kind of offered me, hey, if you want to stay under the Luminous program, we can do this.
Right.
And what I found is if you use the Luminous program, the rate is typically a little bit more because it's the full normal rack rate of the room, so you don't get access to some of the discounts they may offer for early booking and stuff. But in exchange, you get a lot of benefits. And those benefits include, especially at the Cosmo, early check-in, late check-out. You get to use their autograph lounge at the Cosmo, where you can check in between 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. I've been in there many times. It's very nice. You get complimentary Wi-Fi, which is always a benefit. You get a upgrade upon arrival if one is available, and usually it's a one-tier upgrade. So that's kind of nice if they have it available. Especially maybe you're traveling midweek, so there's a lot of rooms available. That'd be great. You get 2 $75 daily breakfast credits per bedroom, and you can use that at the Henry, Egg Slut, District Donuts, Starbucks. Josh, could you spend $75 at Starbucks?
Oh, I'm sure I could. Yeah.
You'd find a way?
I'd find a way, especially if I have my family with me.
Yeah. Wicked Spoon, Overlook Grill, room service, tons of ways you can use that. And you get $100 food and beverage credit or spa service credit. And you can use that at the Sahara Spa and Salon, tax and gratuity not included. It does exclude Zuma, Beauty and Essex, the Juice Standard, Marquee.
Good to know. I know we've talked a lot about what Michael and the team at TravelZork can do outside of Vegas. So we thought it would be fun this week to talk a little bit about what they can do in Vegas. And we know not everybody can get comp rooms all the time, or if you just want to really live it up to the next level, that's when you contact Michael and his team at TravelZork, and they can help you get all set.
Yeah, I think this Luminous program, it's really awesome. It's a Marriott thing from what I understand, Josh, so you can use this actually at other properties throughout the United States. We were talking about some of the benefits exclusive to the Cosmo in Vegas. I mean, Josh, yeah, you may pay $100 more a night for the room than what you could get online, but if you're getting early check-in, late checkout, complimentary Wi-Fi, $75 breakfast credits, $100 food credits, it adds up pretty quick if you want to feel like a high roller.
Absolutely.
Anyways, if you want to get started, head on over to book.travelzork.com and let them know what your dream trip looks like. TravelZork Travel. Book today and let them know Crap Vegas sent you. Josh, let's talk about Audible. I used to hate my commute every day. It was long. It was like 40, 50 minutes a day. I had a ton of podcasts I wanted to listen to, and I did, and I got through them, and then it's like, okay, what do I do now? So I started switching over to audiobooks to fill up my time more and make me feel like I'm actually being productive on my car rides. What about you, Josh?
Well, I love road trips. I love driving. I mean, we talked about the time I flew to Phoenix just so I could drive to Vegas.
Yeah, you're a weirdo. We know.
I know. And I love, as I said on the last show, I love listening to audiobooks. So today, since it's my recommendation, Chris, can I tell you about my pick?
Please do.
All right. My pick today for our listeners on Audible is a novel called Void Moon by Michael Connelly. In this story, our protagonist is Cassie Black. And Cassie has never looked back. She walked away from her life as a criminal after one disastrous night that left the man closest to her dead and her life in shambles. Through everything, even her darkest moments, she's been able to keep going by holding on to one perfect thing, her greatest secret, dearer to her than life itself. But when that secret is threatened, Cassie tosses her new life away like a bad hand of cards and goes back in a sprint to her old line of work. Her trade was robbing casino gamblers, and she was the very best. Now it's the only way she can make enough money fast enough to maybe make everything right. Quickly, she lines up a mark, a man who has been winning steadily for a week at high-stakes baccarat. The job goes smoothly until she opens his briefcase and discovers a world of trouble she had never dreamed of.
Now, you clearly wrote that plot summary yourself, right?
I pinned it together from different things.
Okay. I was going to say, that didn't feel like a Josh special there, but it does sound really exciting, Josh. I definitely want to give that a listen pretty soon. Crap Vegas listeners do get a free 30-day trial of Audible, including a free credit for any audiobook you would like. And you get to keep that book no matter what you do. If you keep the trial and keep going, book's yours. If you turn the trial off the next day, book's still yours. You can sign up today by visiting audibletrial.com/crapvegas. That's audibletrial.com/crapvegas. Okay, guys, welcome back to Slot Talk with Chris and Josh, a new bi-weekly segment. No, just kidding. It's not going to be a bi-weekly segment. But we did receive an email from listener Jack, and yes, this is Boring Craps Jack, as we like to call him, that had some questions about our slot play, and I thought we'd run through his email, Josh. So Jack's message says, "Hey guys, I was wondering if you'd like to talk about slot machines a little more on the next show. I don't ever play slots, but I do play a lot of VP, so I'm definitely used to spending a fair bit of my Vegas trip in front of a machine. I also watch a small handful of slot vloggers, so I definitely get the appeal, but it's made me curious about how y'all feel about them after playing with a bit more regularity. Here are some questions that I have." Okay, let's take these, Josh. You ready?
All right.
What is it about slots that makes you want to do it as a warm-up activity? An example, in the morning or when you first get into town.
That's a great question, Jack. And I don't know if this is true with Chris as much as it is for me. I don't know if he looks at slots the same way, but as I've said, slots is definitely a warm-up for me, especially first thing in the morning, but really even when I first get into town. And it's a great question. I was thinking about when I saw your question, what is it that drives me to that? I think part of it is I'm a little anxious about, even though I love craps and know how to play and all that stuff, there's a kind of an anxiety that comes with going up and having to interact with people, whether it's dealers or players, just when you're cold like that, when I haven't gambled, I'm just waking up in the morning or anything like that. So slots is nice because it's very solitary. I can pick whatever machine I want and do it at my own pace. And part of it is, we talked about before, Chris and I like to play craps at open tables, and especially first thing in the morning, that might just be me or the two of us. And my coffee can sit there for hours and hours before I have a chance to drink because all I'm doing is shooting at the craps table. So if I sit at a slot machine, I can enjoy my coffee and kind of wake up and begin the day that way. That's really it. There's nothing more to it than that, I don't think. How about you, Chris?
So for you, slots is like pre-gaming for the big party, which is the craps table.
Yeah.
It's how you get your first beer of the day in so that you can step up to the table and really go crazy. Yeah, I mean, for me, I don't really look at it that way. I never intentionally go to a slot machine before I go to a craps table or anything like that. I know when we're together, I do it because that's what makes you comfortable, and it doesn't bother me one way or the other.
Right.
So why not? But no, I don't have any inclinations to ever go to a slot machine first before a craps table or anything.
Yeah, it's weird though, in thinking about it, Jack, I almost always do.
Yeah, no, it's what you've always told me every time we're together or even when you're on a trip by yourself. And I think he gets into that a little bit here in a second. His next question says, what things do you like about the specific slots that you like? I know you guys like various Heidi-based and pick-based slots, but what is it about these slots that keeps you coming back? Similarly, if there are slots you've tried that didn't grab you, what were they missing? So Josh, what do you look for in a good slot machine if you're going to cozy up to one and play for a bit?
Well, keeping in mind, of course, this question comes from Jack, and to our listeners that don't know, Jack is very in tune with odds and house edge and things like that. So
yes.
I'm not talking about anything to do with a slot machine being more advantageous financially. I'm just talking about what it is that appeals to me, and it's not that. I'm not looking for something that has a lower house edge or anything like that. So quite frankly, I think with Heidi's, it was the song.
Yeah.
I think
it's addicting.
Yeah. And the other thing about Heidi's, and as Chris and I have gotten more mature as slot players,
yes, completely,
and we've raised our bet levels up. This has changed a little bit, but I think one of the fun things about Heidi when I first was a newer slot player or a lower limit slot player, the max bet on Heidi in most places was $6.30. So you could play just a penny, and if you maxed it out, it was $6.30, which is still a fair bit. But I mean, back then I was playing, $2.70 a spin or something, or even lower than that. So it's nice to, even at 6:30, to be able to just sit there and play for a while and not get totally wiped out. It's the song. It's the bonuses. It's whatever the bonus feature is, if I hit it, that grabs me. The ones I don't like, and I know this is, again, not probably the mathematical way to do it, are the cherries and the old school slot machines. I just find boring. Sure. Chris puts money in those, and of course he gets hand pay after hand pay after hand pay. I don't like the 3 real machines. They just are boring to me.
No, I completely understand. I mean, the video slots, Josh, the return is typically less than the old school machines. I think that's always been the kind of the overall notion for people. And I get that. If you're asking me what attracts me to a slot, I think you hit it at the very end there. It's typically the bonus games.
Yeah.
I'm a sucker for good bonus games that are a lot of fun and different types of them. I think some slot companies have started catching on to people's inclinations towards bonuses. I'd rather have more frequent bonuses that pay less than less frequent that pay more. I really would.
And that's true, I think, with Heidi. I think Heidi, you tend to get more bonuses, but sometimes they can just be fairly terrible. I feel like they come more frequently, but they're not great.
I mean, I feel like I judge how a session went, not by how much I won or lost, but like, did I get enough bonuses that I really enjoyed?
Right.
And quite frankly, giving you small bonuses keeps you playing to want another bonus, and you're losing money every time you do it. So it makes more sense to give you more bonuses, less money.
Well, especially because, as you said, most of us want that thrill, that rush of hitting the bonus. Mm-hmm. And if you can hit it once on a machine, you're definitely more, I think, at least for me, I'm more likely to go back and play that machine again.
Yeah. Let's move on to the next question. Jack asks, how do you find the sweet spot for bet size, dollars wagered per spin, that makes it so that the wins feel meaningful, but you don't get wiped out?
It's a good question. I think for me, it kind of depends on what I'm going for. If I am just sitting there before I'm going to play craps and I just want to kill some time and get myself into the gambling mood, then I'm more likely to play a lower level Heidi's machine, let's say. But if I'm actually going into the high limit room to try and get a hand pay or to, accumulate a fair number of tier credits playing slots, then I'm looking for higher games.
Yeah, I think you're right on that. It's rare that I walk up to a slot machine to play $5 or $6 a pull. It just doesn't interest me too terribly much because even a good win doesn't feel like it's that good.
Right.
So I have a tendency to float between 15 and 25 a spin, occasionally more than that. Just depends on what kind of mood I'm in. It leads to a lot more hand pays, obviously. Doesn't mean that I'm winning anymore. It just means I'm getting some bigger hits. But I like to see hits, at least for me, Josh. I don't feel like it's really a great win unless it's really 2,000 or more.
And again, it depends on what to a lot of people, I think, Chris, that sounds huge.
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, I get that, but I try to put it in perspective to the way we play craps.
Yes.
And if we walked up to a craps table and we won $812, that would be kind of meaningless to us.
Yeah, I think the same way. So again, it kind of goes back to, I'm the same way as Chris, although I don't tend to go as high as Chris.
No, yeah, we're a little different in that area.
Yeah, I might go $25 a spin sometimes, but if I'm in a high limit room, I'm going to try and stick to between 10 and 15 a spin. Mm-hmm. But I'm more than happy to just sit there at a $6.30 Heidi machine and plug away at it. And as Chris said, it's much harder to get a nice jackpot, to get a hand pay. Sure. Although maybe the biggest hand pay I ever had was on a Heidi machine. Probably the reason I got hooked into it. At a $2.70 spin, I hit it for almost $6,000.
Yeah, so super bonus.
It can happen, right? No, this wasn't even this was not the tuba bonus. This was just
I thought it was
like 96 spins or something, and every one
kept going and going.
Yeah, just kept going and going. Right,
adds up quick, doesn't it?
Oh, it's a thing of beauty.
Next question. It's obviously great when slot wins can help pad your trip bankroll, but do you feel extra bad losing money on slots and thinking I could have played that on craps?
This is a fantastic question, Jack.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say absolutely I do. When I look at my, at the end of a trip, and it's easy to say when you've lost, but at the end of a trip, if it's been a losing trip, and I do separate how much I won or lost in craps and how much I won or lost in slots, and I think I just lost 60% of my total loss on slots. What did I do that for? Why didn't I just play craps? Theoretically, the return should be better, but there are lots of reasons that we play slots, and some of it is enjoyment, some of it is to get tier credits. There's different reasons. But yeah, it gets on me sometimes for sure when I look back and think, why did I do that? But at the same time, it can go completely the opposite.
Oh, and that's where I've been the past
That's what I was gonna say,
3-4
right.
trips, Josh. I mean, if it wasn't for the slot play, I'd be getting my ass handed to me. But I've had some really good luck on slots recently. So, I mean, I can't look at it from the other perspective and say, boy, it's a shame I won that money. I could have
Right.
won that at craps. But no, it really has balanced itself out a little bit over time for me, thankfully. But I don't think I'd look at it any differently, Josh. I mean, it's part of the gambling budget, whether it's craps or slots or whatever we're talking about. It's all the same at the end of the day.
Chris, that's a good point. When I think of it, sometimes I have, let's say I'll set aside $1,000 and I'm going to say, I just want to play Heidi's and I want to play this $1,000 through because I just want to do it. I want to see if I can hit that tuba bonus in Heidi or whatever. And I'm thinking of that myself. You talk about it all being the same budget. I separate a little bit. I mean, I'll say I'm going to throw $1,000 away in slots and I don't think of it as not, that 1,000 is not part of my craps budget, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. How much time can you spend on slots before you get bored? I know a couple guys that could play like 7 hours of crap straight on an empty stomach before needing to tap out for some food. Do you feel the same way about slots or do you get an itching to mix it up quicker?
Oh, I can't spend that much time at a slot machine. I could spend a couple hours maybe, but that's about it for me.
Oh, I can't even do that.
Yeah, I don't know if I really can either, but
I mean, for me, slots are like 10 to 20 minutes
yeah,
is what they should be. Like I want to get in, get out, and move on and get back to the craps table. I could never spend a whole day of gaming just at a slot machine. That would be insane.
no, all our listeners who are continuous or constant slot players, more power to you. That's a skill in itself.
Yeah, I just, that's not something I could ever do.
But no, I'm with you. I can go a little longer than Chris, but not. I could stand at a craps table all day. I mean, if it's just going back and forth and I'm happy and the crew is good and I'm not losing my shirt, I can stay. I've stayed at craps table 6-7 hours. Chris and I have before.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Love it. Do you have any slot routines or dare I say superstitions? Like when to change machines, when to change your bet, machines you only play if you're up big or only play when you've been losing. Do you have anything like that, Josh?
No, I'm pretty boring. I don't kiss the
Same.
machines. I'm trying to think of anything. I'll stay at the one thing that is good or bad. It's not a superstition is I will do what I kind of joked about at the beginning. I will throw money in a slot machine. And if it's not winning, I'll keep going. And I'm like, I'm going to play this thing until I get a bonus. And just keep,
the casino really appreciates that.
Yes. But that's not a superstition or anything. No, I don't have any routines. I don't have a 3-spin and I go to a different machine kind of thing, or I don't go from machine to machine. I pretty much just pick the one I want and we'll stay there however long. Way. Yeah, whatever my session is.
I know plenty of people, Josh, that if they hit a bonus, they immediately switch to the next machine in the bank because they think, oh, that machine's right. I can't tell you how many times I played slots and got bonuses back to back to back to back. I mean, they just, it doesn't matter if you just hit a bonus or not. But I know a lot of people are superstitious about that. But no, anybody that knows me knows I am not superstitious in any way at all. So no, there's really nothing you could say that would get me to go in that direction. I'm
more superstitious than Chris, but I can't think of any on the slot machine that I do. Maybe sometimes I'll, if it's Heidi, you have to spin a wheel with your finger on the screen sometimes. And maybe once in a while I'll spin it the opposite direction or something. That's about as close as it gets.
Oh, look at you.
Right. Any sort of, yeah.
Talking about superstitions, Josh, it reminded me the last trip I was on at Venetian. I was sitting there playing on this. I was on one side of the table. There was nobody else down there with me. There was like 4 or 5 people on the other side of the table. That happens a lot. I think people get scared when they see the level of action we play with.
Yeah.
And they're like afraid to stand next to us. I don't know if that's really the case, but that's at least what I've told myself in my mind. But there was a couple that came up behind me.
It's really that you haven't bathed.
Yep, that's probably what it is. The husband or the boy was trying to explain to the girlfriend, wife, whatever it may have been. They were trying to explain the game of craps. And Josh, this happens every trip we're on. And listening to this guy try to explain the game was extremely frustrating. And it took everything I had inside of me not to chime in and be like, that's actually not correct, what you're saying. Or, it'll be something like when you roll a 7, he say, oh, he just crapped out. Things like that really do annoy me. I don't know why, but they do. But anyways, the whole time he was standing there explaining the game to her, he kept saying 7 over and over and over again. And we had a point established, Josh. I don't care But somebody on the other side of the table heard it. He was saying so much. And he told him, he said, dude, if you don't stop saying that number, I'm going to hurt you. And the guy kind of looked at him, and all the dealers like froze for a minute. And they're like, is this guy serious? And he's like, I'm just kidding, man, but you got to stop saying that. And he kept going on, and he got really quiet and backed away from the table pretty quick. But, it's amazing how superstitious us craps players can be.
Oh, we are a superstitious bunch for sure.
Next question. How is solo slot playing when only one of you is in town? I'd feel like that solo craps is still fun because there's a crew there, but solo slots, isn't that kind of isolating?
It is, but to me, that's what I'm going for with a slot machine usually. I mean, if Chris and I are playing side by side and, that's fun, but slots, in my opinion, are kind of a solo activity anyway.
I agree.
They're not really a social thing, so that part of it for me is fine. But it's definitely a different atmosphere than a craps table, even an empty craps table.
And I'll say this, Josh, we talked about once playing video poker next to each other. That is like the most isolating experience you can possibly do. Like, at least with slots, you don't have to pay attention. You just hit the button and whatever's going to happen happens. Whether you're paying attention or not, it does not matter. But if you're playing video poker, you literally do have to focus on the screen to make sure you're holding the right cards and making the right choices. I can't think of a less social game than video poker.
No, I agree. And I was going to say slot machines, the one thing you didn't mention, if we're playing side by side and you hit a bonus or I hit a bonus, I'll stop playing and watch your bonus, or you'll stop playing and watch mine. In video poker, you can't do that. The bonus either hits, not the bonus, but you either hit a good hand comes or it doesn't. Right.
Yeah,
not anything to even watch the other person's machine.
Next question. Do you have any slot-related gambling goals? Like, I'm going to play this machine a little each trip until I get the triple bonus or the progressive or anything like that. Have you ever set a gambling goal on a slot machine?
As I said, I even texted Chris on the last trip, or one of them was like, I'm playing this Heidi's machine until I get a tuba bonus. Damn it.
How'd that work out for you, Josh?
Well, I don't think on that session I got the tuba bonus, but I did get a tuba bonus on the last trip.
I've still never seen it. I don't think it really exists.
I've taken videos of it. But anyway, I think that's the only... I do have a tendency, Chris, I don't think does that, but I tend to get sucked into the, I'm going to play this machine until I get a bonus thing.
I think that's what they want. So they're working as intended. It seems like sometimes you use slots for more accurately hitting certain tier milestones. If craps could be enhanced somehow so that you got tier credits more clearly and obviously and reflected more immediately, would that cut into your slot play? Yes.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. The one thing that we've talked about a ton is that I think casinos do a horrible job of letting, especially table games players, know how they're doing in their system. Yes. They don't tell you what your average bet is. They don't tell you how long you played. They don't tell you because you did this, you earned this many tier credits based on this. I wish casinos would be a heck of a lot more forthcoming on what table games players are going to earn for their play.
Absolutely. If I knew I was being rated at $500 average bet on a craps table, and I knew that the whole time, and I could see my tier credits accumulating, I would be much more likely to stay at that table, I think.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And if there was a way they could visually show you at the table how much you've earned while you're playing, I bet you people would play a lot more.
Even if I could just pull it up on my app. Check my app every
as
5 minutes or something.
Yeah, right. Real-time update.
Yeah.
And Josh, here I'm thinking they put like a little tiny screen at each spot on the craps table that's for you, and it just shows you like your tier credits earning, just like a slot machine.
Just like a slot, right.
It sounds stupid, but quite frankly, it would get a lot of people to stick around and keep playing. But the bad part about table game play, you could play the exact same way at 10 different tables, and your bets could fluctuate the exact same way, and you're going to get 10 completely different ratings and 10 completely different set of tier credit earnings for that session.
And that's the nice thing, going back to your point, Jack, about slots and video poker, you can track exactly how those tier credits are coming. And if you know you want, not that you should be playing for tier credits, but if you are, and we do it sometimes, if you know you want to hit 2,000 or 1,000, whatever level you're going for, slots are the easiest way to do it, and video poker, because you know exactly where you are.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Last question, Josh. What slots are you most excited for? Like when you're on the plane to Vegas thinking about the opportunities you'll have when you land. Like, this has never happened to me. What slots are at the front of your mind and why?
It's going to be Heidi, obviously.
That song just plays on repeat in your head constantly, doesn't it?
Yeah. I try not to think about slots like that eagerly, I would say. But if I'm thinking about slots in advance, it's Heidi's. I might think about, okay, if I'm not going to play Heidi, maybe I'll play some video poker, and I start thinking about where I'm going to play video poker, but that's really it. I don't particularly dream about slot machines or, like have these big plans about slots. If I'm going to do that, it's more likely craps that I'm thinking about in advance, like when I want to go down and who I hope I'll see as far as dealers or what table limits I want. I don't do that as much with slots, I don't think.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I do think about, hey, I really hope this dealer's work, especially if I'm going to win.
Right.
I'm thinking, I really hope dealer A, B, and C are going to be there this weekend.
You can say Rick and Janine and Liz and, the actual.
Okay. Well, yeah, okay, fine. Fair enough. Josh, it's been so long since I've been to win. I don't remember any of their names anymore. Rick,
That's
who?
true. They all look alike.
I mean, they do. Yeah, pretty much. But yeah, no, I mean, I think about things like that. I think, if it's win, I wonder what floor I'm going to be on there since I can't get a nicer room there.
Right.
Things like that cross my mind. But no, I've never at any point thought about, I wonder what slot machine's going to be available and what bonus, or I wonder what the Heidi bonus is at this week. That stuff just doesn't cross my mind.
No, me either.
Okay, fair enough. So great questions, Jack. This was Slot Talk version 1. I'm sure we'll come back with a second episode at some point.
We'll have our vlog up soon.
Yeah, we'll start working on that. But great questions, and hopefully for our slot players, this was entertaining for you.
Yeah, we gave you a taste.
Josh, I went through, we had a lot of questions for this week. The only one that I really wanted to touch on, it's not even a question. We got a message from Timmy, and Timmy was talking about how the IRS Advisory Council recommended that they increase the slot jackpot trigger up to $5,800 to issue a W2G. And for anybody that's received one recently, they know it's $1,200 or more currently. They're promoting an increase to $5,800. It's actually a bipartisan effort that they're making. There's a Democratic senator and a Republican senator leading the push. Or maybe it's House of Rep members. I can't remember at this point. But somebody's pushing it. It is bipartisan. And they're pushing for a $5,800 threshold. Josh, do you think $5,800 is reasonable considering the $1,200 threshold has been in place forever?
Yeah, I think it's been around since like the 70s or something like that, Chris, off the top of my head. $1,200 is way too low. As our slot players, going back to Slot Talk, know, it's not hard to get a $1,200 jackpot on slots and to always have to do the tax form and everything. And again, not to put on my tax man hat, because I'm not the tax man, but whether you get the W2G or not, you are supposed to report your winnings.
Income.
And
yes.
It's still income. So, but this is the paperwork involved and that kind of thing. $5,800 is a lot more reasonable to me.
I agree.
Chris? Yeah.
I mean, I've had, I don't know, Josh, I think last year I had 45 W2Gs I had to type in and get the information in there. I've already had like 12 this year.
You might have even had more than that. I feel like you've had more than that.
Okay, maybe it's 20. I don't even remember. Either way, Josh, how many have been over $5,800? 2.
Right.
In the past 2 years.
Right.
It's not that many. I agree. Yes, all winnings, whether you get a W2G or not, if you win on a session of slots, theoretically, you have income and you need to claim that income and you need to pay taxes on that income. We're not trying to dissuade anybody from doing their civic duty and paying taxes. But that being said, receiving the tax form and the process associated with it, the mandatory tipping, even though it's not mandatory, it is, the tipping of the person to bring you the form that you didn't want to get from them in the first place, it slows you down. It's not good for anybody. And quite frankly, the casino doesn't want to do it anyways. They don't want to do it. They want you to keep playing.
Yep. I do think, though, as you talk about tipping, I do think about the poor slot attendant. If that goes up to $5,800, that's going to be a big change for some slot attendants.
Oh, absolutely it will. There's going to have to be a change in base pay because the tip pool is going to go way down in that situation.
Yeah. Which is that's the only unfortunate thing, I think. But
well, maybe if you look at it the opposite way, Josh, if all the hand pays that people get are for jackpots that are effectively $6,000 or more, maybe people would start tipping more knowing that.
That's true. It's a big deal for sure. And if it happens, I'm all for it. I know we have one listener, I think, who had like 217 W2Gs last year.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work.
I know.
Right.
It is. And I mean, you can summarize those and put them all together from when you're doing this thing. You don't have to put it, like if you're using H&R Block's tax software, you don't need to put each individual one in. You can pool together them all under one. You can say I had 10, total up the amounts, total up the taxes withheld. and just report the details from one transaction. You don't have to do it individually. But either way, it's still a pain in the butt. So just let's make it easy on everybody.
So thanks for calling that out, Timmy, on the Facebook group.
Yeah, absolutely. We got a lot of questions from you guys that we wanted to get to. Josh, I'm going to hold them off to next week. Let's just keep this thing moving. Patreon, Josh. That's patreon.com/crapvegas. We recently had an episode with a full recap of my trip to the Venetian and why I have slowly started making moves to make that my number 2 property.
I want to say that episode was one of my favorite Patreon episodes.
Was
if
it?
you really was. You know why, right? You haven't forgotten why.
Oh, yes, I have. Now I know why.
I was surprised
It
you
wasn't
didn't
the
lead with that.
content. No, it wasn't the content. It was just some work that Josh did on a musical inclined. I don't even know what to say. You did a great job, Josh.
I put together a musical montage for Chris.
You did. Yeah.
In honor of his most recent trip to Venetian.
It pulled at my heartstrings, Josh.
It did.
There was a tiny violin on the desk right next to me and I was just crying.
So if you want to get a good laugh and you're a patron or you'd like to join us over on Patreon, that last Patreon episode, our CVP show, was a lot of fun. And again, we put those out opposite the main show. Every 2 weeks, we put on a Patreon show, and we think those are a lot of fun, and we try and make them extra special for the patrons. So thank you to our patrons and our new patrons that Chris will tell you about. And if you want to join us over there, we would welcome that too.
Yeah. Well, Josh, it obviously worked because, again, this week, a lot of new members. We appreciate all of you. Special thanks to August, Marilyn, Jess the Mess, Michael S., Brian B., Ace Pinball, Sydney C., Matthew H., Thomas W., Joel S., Erica Z., Henry T., and another special thank you to Lou D., who upgraded to the KCS level this week. Thank you to all you guys that have signed up over the past couple weeks. We really do appreciate it. We hope you're loving the content over there, and we'll do our best to keep putting it out. Upcoming trips, Josh, I have zero idea when I will be there again. I had planned on being there the weekend that this is being released. I'm not going now. I don't think I can get there till at least the end of March, and you're getting close to Easter, and there's a lot of things going on. So who knows when I'll be in Vegas again?
Yes, I will be there very soon when this episode drops. I'm going down with a couple buddies to do a little lower rolling Vegas trip. So you might get some trip reports from us going downtown, or who knows what kind of trouble we'll get into, but I'm excited about that. And then Chris and I finally firmed up an end of April trip. So that's what we've got coming up, but it'll be a while before we are together again.
That's so sad. But find out on the next episode of Crap Vegas what happens when they reunite. A friendly reminder to subscribe and leave a review on your favorite podcasting app and visit our merch store. That's crapvegas.com/shop. As a special thank you to our listeners, as we approach our 50th episode, we are offering 50% off all remaining CV shirts that are in stock. We do have very limited supplies of certain sizes on certain shirts, so make sure to get yourself over there soon and get shopping using promo code BIG50. Big thank you to everyone who submitted stories about Vegas properties that made their trip extra special. I think I've repeated this a couple times now.
You have.
And you know what? We made some creative choices on the direction to go for this episode. We will talk about that next episode. Josh, anything else you want to talk about before we get out of here?
So the last thing is, I'm glad I'm feeling much better after my Super Bowl cold or whatever it is, that I've still got a little bit. So
You sound better.
Yeah, I'm definitely better. I'm not all the way there yet, but I'm better. But I had a couple last little Super Bowl things. Well, one is a story. So Chris, I posted this on, I think I tweeted it and I put it on the Facebook group, but I had captured, but if you're not a follower of any of our socials, I thought it'd be fun to talk about. So my seats at the Super Bowl, Chris saw the picture, looked down at the field, obviously, but in front of me were some NFL camera crews. And so I could see them and I could kind of see their camera lens during the game. And it was, most of the time just zooming into whatever player or anything like that. But after the game, as the stadium is starting to empty out, I'm walking by these guys and I see that one of the NFL cameras is trained on Taylor Swift as she's down on the field to see Travis Kelce. And the cameraman just has the camera steady cam on Taylor Swift in case the NFL says, we need Taylor shot. And so I got some video of that and I posted it online. And then ESPN asked if they could use my footage of the camera, the Taylor cam. Anyway, that was a fun little maybe ESPN will pick up my footage, but as far as I know, they never did.
I will say, Josh, if anybody actually wants to see that quick little video, they can head over to the CV TikTok page, and it's on there.
That's right. One of our two TikToks.
Our one TikTok every 6 months. That's what you got.
The other thing I was going to say, Chris, as we talk about upcoming events, and this ties into the Super Bowl, Chris, I don't know if you remember, one of the performers at the halftime show, in addition to Usher, was Lil Jon. Lil Jon will be at Hakkasan on March 2nd when this episode drops, and on March 16th, and again in April. So since we do like to go to clubs now, I wanted to point that out. That's the tie into the Super Bowl.
Oh, good. I was very concerned about that. Glad to hear he's coming. I'll tell you what, Josh, I can go a step farther than that. Lil Jon was supposed to perform in Kentucky, in a tiny little town that nobody outside of Kentucky would ever even know about. I mean, I think the population there, Josh, is like 5,000 people. They were paying him $100,000 to come perform at one of their little festivals. And the promoter at the last minute ended up backing out, or we were going to have Lil Jon here in Kentucky.
Wow. Well, now you just have to go to Vegas.
I guess so. Thank you all for listening. We really do appreciate it. And we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Vegas, here we come.
Thanks for listening to the Crap Vegas podcast.
Have you ever been to Vegas?
Check out all our recent news and our Vegas trip calendar by visiting crapvegas.com.
See you in Vegas.
Lil Jon will be at Hassakan on March 2nd.
There's no such place as Hassakan. You want to try again? Josh, as a club expert, you should know this. There's no Hassakan. Oh my! What does Hassakan know for? So Hakkasan is at the MGM Grand.
Yes.
Is Hassakan is that at Circus? Where is that? That would be funny if they named it Hassakan over at Circus. I would laugh.
So, Chris, Lil Jon will be at, what is it?
Hakkasan.
So, Chris, Lil Jon will be at Hakkasan. Is that what it is?
Yeah, Lil Jon, not Little John. That's Robin Hood. Lil Jon at Hakkasan. Robin Hood was going to Hassakan. I mean, who would have thought it would take this long to get one sentence out at the end of an episode? We'll cut that.
Which part?
But maybe all of it. Just cut the whole damn episode.
Computer, how many entries are there for Darmok?
47.